Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Surviving, the safe space for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to receive support, resources, and share their stories. Beyond Surviving is about freedom, healing, connection, and even laughter and fun. Most importantly, it's about letting go of the pain of abuse and finally moving on. You can learn more about me and the Beyond Surviving program at rachelgrantcoaching.com. Now, today, folks, I am so very excited to have here with me my guest, Mike Chapman, who's really going to be talking with us about his unique journey of healing from trauma. He experienced incest and childhood sexual abuse and trafficking. He's also a survivor of sexual assault as an adult by clergy. His story ultimately is really about the healing journey so that he could come to a point in his life where he is living his dream, y'all. And we're going to get to hear all about that. He is such an advocate for abuse survivors, and he's a recovery life coach for both Polar Life Consulting and husband material. Are y'all out there looking for some husband material? Mike will help you with that. He's located in Wilson, North Carolina, and he's 57 and shares his life with his wife, Beth. So, Mike, thanks so much for being here with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to come join us today.
My pleasure. I'm 58 now.
You're 58. You had a birthday since we talked. Well, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, amazing. So I really want to just start from the place of just giving you lots of space, to share your story. Whatever you would like the listeners to know about what's happened, what your journey has been like, and where you are today.
Right. Well, I've talked to a lot of survivors, and not always is our journey linear. Sometimes it bounces around a little bit. And that's what happened to me. When I was 20 in college, a Methodist minister took an interest in me, and I thought, cool, I was a product of divorce. Father wasn't involved in my life, and it's like, here's this godly man taking an interest in me. Wow, that's wonderful. But little did I know he was a pedophile and liked teenage boys, and I was a late bloomer, and even though I was 20, I could pass for 16 easily, and it fit his profile. Plus, I was legal. So, and once he made attempts and started touching things where he shouldn't, I realized what he was trying to do, and thankfully, I was able to stop it. But then all those feelings of guilt and shame and so forth just overwhelming me. What is it about me that he would be interested in? And but also something in the back of my mind knew what was going on and told me, no, stop, make it stop. And I didn't know where that came from. And then fast forward several years, I get married, moved to the East Coast. I'm originally from Oregon. Met my wife. We had a daughter, and soon after the daughter was born, I don't know, something clicked, and I started having a whole lot of memories, feelings, and so forth, and I got help for that. And then it came out that I had been abused by my father as well. Sexually abused. At the time, I thought it started at age 3. It turns out it was actually earlier than that, about age 7 months, and continued till I was about 5. But as far as I knew, it was around age 3. And I started getting help for that, getting counseling, whatever I could get. Didn't have a lot of benefits at the time, so professional counseling was out, so whatever support groups I could find to help with that. Then did as much as I could to help myself through that. And then fast forward to 2019, HBO had the documentary Leaving Neverland, and I was able to watch that And so many things clicked with my own experiences, and knew I needed to dig into this because I knew I was carrying all of that guilt and shame and so forth, and needed to really go through that again and really figure out, okay, do I need to get help? How can there's still all this stuff inside of me because I had really hadn't dealt with it that much.
Mhm.
And so I did. I after the 4-hour HBO special, they had a 1-hour Oprah special that followed. And in that special, it talked about an online support group for male survivors of abuse, male survivor. And I went there, and they have an online forum that's been there for over a decade. Thousands of men have posted their stories on there, and I was able to share mine and just learn so much from these men, how much they've experienced, what symptoms we had in common, what is quote unquote normal for someone who has experienced this, what that so many things, there's so many commonalities. And they said, oh yeah, you probably have PTSD. It's like, oh, I do? Okay, let's research that. And I'm pulling up the website. Oh, you probably have PTSD. It looks like this. It's like, okay, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me,
Mhm.
all the way down the list. And then I started freaking out. Okay, if I get healed from all of that, what's left?
Yeah.
Because that was scary, because that pretty much described all of my personality at that point. So if you take all that away, who is the real Mike? And I didn't know.
Mm.
And that was scary, but I wanted to learn more. And I got in touch with a PTSD therapist. Wonderful. He's well versed in several different methodologies on trauma therapy, not only EMDR, which seems to be the de facto treatment these days, but has training in brain spotting and several other methods as well. It's like a little toolbox, and he can just pick and choose different tools from the different methodologies that he studied for whatever seems to fit that particular issue that you're dealing with. So helpful. And through all of that, we were also able to uncover that I had been trafficked by my father from age 5 to age 8 to other men at what they call boy swap events. Basically, men getting together, bringing underage boys, usually sedated, for sexual exploitation purposes, and uncovering that, and then dealing with all of those memories and all of the PTSD flashbacks started to, now that I uncovered all that stuff, all that came to the fore, and dealing with those in therapy, and so many things were confirmed. And then since 2019, I've been trying to heal from all of that and discover who I really am outside of just this set of symptoms, and allowing the real Mike to emerge. And that's been an interesting journey as well.
Mhm. Mike, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Thank you for breaking the silence. Thank you for your voice, your truth, your vulnerability. I'm always profoundly honored when somebody shares their journey with me, with this community, in this way. And particularly for my male listeners, I know it's just so important to hear and see themselves, just through the lens of gender identity. And so thank you for that.
Right.
A couple of things that I want to kind of dig into from your story. I want to talk a little bit about this piece of recalling memories. I know, we know as a result of trauma, memories, traumatic memories can be, have gaps. They can go, be stored, but not recalled, no conscious memory. And then later in life, we can be going through a healing process. And then we have a retrieved memory or a recalled memory. And I know for many people it is very unsettling, right? Because you've kind of been trucking along with a certain sense of what my life was, what I've lived, what I've experienced, and then this really rocks the boat.
Mhm.
And I wonder how what were some of the things that made the biggest difference for you as you process through those memories that were coming up that weren't conscious throughout your life, that came in, as an adult? How did you deal with things like, is this really real? Am
Right.
I making this up? And then just the shift that it caused in your foundation of
Right.
self. Could you speak to that a little
Yeah,
bit, whatever comes to mind?
definitely. When those memories started to come up, I think originally back when I was 30, looking into this stuff, I started reading a book, and it was a story of a lady who was similarly abused. For me and this lady, it was forced oral. Um, and she describes what happens, and as I'm reading this, a light went on that, oh my God, that happened to me. And it was, I call it a wave of truth. It just kind of like trickled down
Ooh.
my
Mhm.
whole body, and it just got tingles. And then I was in a support group, and I talked to the leader. I was just like crying nonstop. And this is back when it was pagers and payphones. So that's showing my age. So I got on the payphone, talked to the 12 step, or the support group leader, and told him, it's like, I think this happened, I don't know what I did. So he just calmed me down and kind of stepped me through it and got me back together. But yeah, then wondering, okay, am I crazy? Am I just making this up? And then looking into different parts of my story and extended family, and remembering past events. It had come out about 7 or 8 years previously that my father had sexually assaulted several extended family members. And I was able to contact one of them and say, okay, what do you remember? Because it wasn't what act, it was just that an assault happened with several.
Mhm.
Okay. And then they described the same act that I remember happening to me. And it's like, oh, boom, confirmation. And it was indeed my father. And so, and then also, it was like this huge puzzle piece that had been missing.
Yeah.
Once you put that puzzle piece in, all the other puzzle pieces made sense. So the fact, when I was kindergarten and swimming lessons, they tried to duck my head underwater, and I totally freaked out and went to the bathroom and never wanted to come back. And I was bawling, and I didn't know why. Uh,
Mhm.
that certain foods like cherry tomatoes, that if I eat them and they explode in my mouth, that just, oh, it just freaks me out. So all
Sure.
these tactile
Yeah,
tactile
sensory.
sensations, yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
would just, all of a sudden, all those things made sense. It's like,
Yeah.
oh. And then going to the male survivor site, so many more things. It's like, oh, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. So many things that they were talking about that um, made sense. And then I also, what brought me to discover the trafficking was not my therapist, was actually male survivor, that I had always remembered having this memory block around first grade. I remember kindergarten really well. I remember second grade really well. But first grade was like a big black hole in my memory. And
Mhm.
so then I started, okay, typing, sharing, and Male Survivor is wonderful. It's anonymous, so you can come up with whatever name you want and post there, but it is public. So if you don't even know if you want to share, you can go in there, and you don't even have to log in. You can read stories, but then when you want to log in, they encourage you, yes, be anonymous.
Yeah.
And it gives you a little bit more freedom to share from your heart. Uh, and I shared this weird memory of uh, camping. It was actually after first grade, but it's felt important.
Mhm.
And it, I was pulled out of my bed, middle of the night by my father. Okay, help me grab your mattress. We're going to throw it in the back of the station wagon. That's minivans back then.
Mhm.
Um, and we're going camping. Okay, no, weeks before, hey, we're going camping, something to look forward to. Yay. No, last minute, middle of the night, throw me in the back of the station wagon. We're going camping.
Yeah.
And then we get there, and it was during the gas crisis. So we had to stop for gas. And so this is 73. There was huge gas lines that apparently he didn't plan for. So it was several hours waiting in line trying to get gas. And I think because of that, I woke up whenever sedative he gave me wore off and he didn't think to bring backups. And so when we arrived at the campground, I was awake. I saw where we were. I saw who was there. And apparently 2 other boys, same thing happened. And so, but anyway,
Mhm.
I do remember this.
Mm.
They put us over on the side of the lake, and they say, "Okay, you stay here. You see this giant rock? Okay, you stay here from here all the way away from the lodge. The lodge is on this side. That's where all the grown-ups were going to be, and we'll bring you lunch. We'll let you know when meals are ready, but you stay there and don't get wet. But you just go play." And that was camping for the weekend, and it made no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. But then I
Yeah.
put it on there and someone said, "Do you think that was a boy swap event?
Mm.
What's that?" And then they describe it. It's like, oh, and that whole truth wave trickled down. And it's like, oh, that's what it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, and right soon after that is when my father left, that he divorced my mother and moved out. And I think I had aged out, and I was the youngest of three. I had 2 older sisters. And so, yeah, he was no longer interested. And um, so that particular event, nothing happened, but obviously it had happened a whole lot previous events and
Yeah.
probably a lot during that first grade period, which is why I blacked most of it out.
Right.
So
Mike, you've articulated something that in a way that I've kind of been trying to seek and find, to name, which is there's this moment of absolute clarity, the way that you're describing it as this wave of truth.
yes,
There's this moment of like, yes. And it's only after the fact, when we start to kind of deal with the consequences of that truth, that I think we begin to maneuver, right? Like, I don't want to believe this. This is a hard thing to believe. And it
right,
would be just so much easier if it weren't true, right? In some way. And so I think that's really important because that can actually become a resource, an anchor when you're processing through trauma memories and you come into that place of doubt, to even just like re-presence that moment, that feeling, those sensations, to come back into the assuredness that
right.
was there, and to know that the doubts and the fears are it's compensation at the end of the day. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's a really beautiful viewpoint and way of thinking about that, and holding space for those experiences that we have that
Yes.
are troublesome to recall. And I also feel like, man, it's just thinking of you as a little 5-year-old guy, and the excitement of like, going out with dad and we're going to go on a trip. And even if it's last minute and oh my gosh, this is an adventure. But for that to have been a space in which he absolutely did not do his job of protecting you and nurturing you and taking care of you, my inner self is like, fuck that guy right now.
Yeah,
I know we find all sorts
I
of
get
ways
it.
to hold the people who have harmed us, but in
Right.
this particular moment, I'm just like, man, it's so unfathomable in so many ways how, a person can do that to a child. And What I'm really present to, though, is your resilience, is your fortitude, is your absolute determination to not be held back by these experiences. And so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about just the general topic of sex trafficking, because we often think of this as something that happens to girls and something that is about stranger danger. And your story really illustrates that we need to think about this very differently. So I want to dig into that a little bit more, as well as just start to hear more of what you would offer to those who are in their own healing journey and process, what you've learned that you'd like to pass on today. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Are you fed up with missing out on life because of fear and anxiety? One of the hardest aspects of being afraid is that the fear and anxiety takes on a life of its own. A single moment becomes a defining moment. One person hurting you becomes a fear that everyone will hurt you. Our fears and anxieties are not to be taken lightly. They can be so strong that they immobilize us. But there is a way out. And during my 60-minute masterclass, I'm going to share with you the keys to unlocking the cage of fear and anxiety so that you can finally do the things you love and obtain the things that you want in your life. Go now to rachelgrantcoaching.com/fear-class and download your MP3. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Mike Chapman, who is sharing his beautiful, powerful story of healing. So before the break, you talked about these, experiences of being taken to these boy swaps, which like my stomach just hurts, the fact that there's a name for it, there's a thing. And again, this for me is really important because when we think about sex trafficking, we usually put that in the lens of, first of all, gender, girls, and second of all, like a child being kidnapped and kind of taken away from their family and, put out into the world. And I think it's really important for us to understand that what you experience within your home as a man, as instigated by a parent, is sex trafficking when you are, given out to other people to be abused. So I wonder if you could just talk about, your perspective on this matter and what we need to really understand and know, and so that we can protect boys better. Yeah.
Right. It's so pervasive yet so hidden in society. And I know doing research in my own healing, they've spoken to pedophiles who really don't have a preference, male versus female. And they often would choose males as their target. And they asked why, and they said, boys don't tell. That because of society, men have to be strong, and to admit that something happened shows weakness. So boys in general tend to not tell. And you look at even sexual assault happens in the military. I just heard a podcast like only 5% or 3% actually tell when sexual assault happens, and it's all everywhere. Men and boys do not come forward to admit that they've been abused. And sometimes it's also because physiologically our bodies respond to any kind of touch, and our body doesn't know good touch versus bad touch,
Right.
Healthy relationship versus abusive relationship. Our bodies will respond, period. Men and boys will get erections, get ejaculations. Right. Yeah. And you feel it's like my body betrayed me. And that I feel, oh, I must have liked this. It's part of condoning. And the part of the grooming process, the perp will use that to their advantage. It's like, hey, see, your body's responding. It likes this, so you like this. And trying to normalize the abuse and make it as if this is just something special within the relationship. And oftentimes, including the Neverland interviewers, it took them a long time to admit that what had happened to them was indeed abuse, because that's how pervasive the grooming process is. And with trafficking, it's the same way. That it happens so often in families that families are the traffickers, that mom, dad, uncle, that they will, for whatever reason, multiple reasons, use their child or a child within the family. It might not even be their own offspring, but a niece, nephew, whatever, someone they may have temporary custody of or whatever, and will traffic them for drugs, for money, in my instance, for the ability to abuse other children.
Access, sure.
But and with boys, they talk about the don't talk to strangers, stranger danger. Okay, someone might kidnap you, but they don't talk about, like they do for girls, okay, private parts, no, that's for you. No one should be touching that. Okay, and that if someone does, talk to someone safe and let them know. And it is not your fault, all those kind of things. It's getting a little bit better. I know when my son was in Scouts as a young child, he's in his 20s now. But yeah, they started to introduce that as Boy Scout stuff started to become well known. They said, okay, we've got to start training. And that was part of it. And so we'd have, okay, a little bit more strict rules. Same thing in church. Okay, more strict rules. Okay, we have badges, only people can sign in and out, and that no one should be alone with the child, all these things to help safety, which is great, but it's still,
it's so important. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm just so glad you're here telling your story, because hearing stories from men, just as it did for women, it starts to defeat the stigma. It starts to normalize the conversation around male survivorship, makes it, a space in which men can come forward. I do a project with a colleague of mine called The Empowered Parent. And one of the things that I'd really like to see as this project continues to grow are more fathers, uncles, male caregivers, showing up into this space and raising their awareness, because we really do, it takes a village, to make sure to train up children, to teach them, and to have the common language of here's what to really think about, and here's what you really need to know about body safety and consent and these sorts of things. Yeah, thanks for sharing about that. So some dreams have come true for you. In this journey, there have been these hardships. There's been many painful moments of, facing and reconciling the traumas that you've experienced, and, the angst that you shared about earlier around who the hell am I, right? Like I so much of my identity feels, connected into and tied up with the abuse that I experienced and these trauma, responses and symptoms. And as you've moved, through that healing journey, I'd love to hear just a little bit about that piece and just where you're at in your life today. What are some of the things that you're up to? I'd love to hear more about the coaching that you're doing and, the work that you're doing with, husbands. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, part of it, as I've been finding my own healing journey, part of it is sharing with others. I did a lot on Male Survivor. Once I started, it was so healthy for me. I hate journaling, but you can make posts and people can comment. and you get all this feedback, and it was so helpful. So I just poured my guts out, and with everything, anything that I could think of, I would put it out there that first year. And that helped me tremendously. They have in-person retreats, which is now led by Men Healing. They have weekends of recovery. Definitely recommend that.
Love that organization, menhealing.org. Am I right about that?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they do in-person, and they've expanded to online events as well, where you can have a whole weekend retreat with other men, and then the counselors at this camp, they're all licensed therapists. And very small groups, and it's safety, 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 because they know that's a huge thing with survivors. So they pile layer upon layer upon layer of safety, so you feel safe, and then you're able to share freely. And phenomenal experience with that. And as a result of that, I've started to share my story more publicly, and different podcasts, different venues, in person, and sharing, like I am with you, what my healing journey has looked like. Also, let's see, on top of life coaching now for others, now doing that professionally. One side hobby I got into is now I'm a professional Santa Claus portrayal artist. And you've got video. Let's see, I've got, yes, this I'm on a magazine cover.
I love that so much.
Yes, this was.
You all decked out as Santa.
Yes, our local magazine insert for our local paper. This is the December issue, of course. And I've been ball Santa for a couple of years now. This made my 3rd year coming up, and love it. It's been so healing, and plus trying to get to a point of knowing that I was safe with children, because I was. I mean, I've never had any kind of inkling about not being safe. And the stats are, yeah, for all those men who have been abused, only a very, very small percentage become abusers. And then there's a certain ideology that that causes them to become abusers. But by and large, no, most men do not become abusers. And realizing, yes, I am safe, and getting to that point to take that on, and then just fall in love with it. And I'm now doing that a lot, especially during the holidays. Though I did my first Christmas in July event last month, which was fun as well. And yeah, and now I'm a professional life coach. I've got my own group, which is Polar Life Consulting, a little play on the Santa, because you got and then,
I didn't even put 2 and 2 together until you said that. How funny.
There you go. And then
yes.
Husbandmaterial.com. It's how the husband material, the whole concept is for men to, if you're already a husband, to make yourself a better husband. If you're not a husband but want to be a husband, it helps you to improve yourself so that you will be in a better situation to become a husband. But if you never want to be a husband, you're welcome as well. But their main goal,
good life skills, just how to be,
That's right. Their main goal is pornography addiction. But they've expanded to sexual brokenness. And then when I came in the door, they realized, oh, so many of those men with these addictions also come from abuse backgrounds and abuse histories.
High correlation, that's for sure.
And that, so we've expanded to include all kinds of sexual brokenness, though that's still their main focus. But yeah, I've got a little subgroup there working with males who have been abused. So
Mike,
and continue to share my story there, and working with clients. Mostly, most of them have been abused as well. And sharing what I've learned in my journey these past few years. And it's been such a blessing to help other men find healing.
Hell yeah, Mike. Oh, I'm so happy for you that you've found a place of joy and fun,
Yeah.
in the Santa Claus space, that you've found a place of passing it on, paying it forward, which is such a beautiful thing. And on that note, I'd love to, as we start to wrap up, I'd love to hear what you would say is kind of, if there was a man listening today who's experienced childhood sexual abuse, and, what would be your advice to him today?
Certainly. I would say, first of all, know that the abuse was not your fault. Even if you physiologically reacted, it still was not your fault.
That's right. 100%.
And help is out there, help is available. You can find
Yeah.
healing. And whether contacting me or all those other groups that we mentioned today, help is out there. And you can find healing, and you can move from what they say, from a victim to a survivor to a thriver, where you could have a wonderful, fulfilling, joy-filled life. It is available. And healing is not easy. It's been so difficult getting through the stuff, the pain, the hurt. It's hard work, but it is so worth it. You come out and yeah, you actually can live a life, and it's amazing. And no matter what you think happened to you, oh, it's not the same, it's not, no, I had it much worse. It doesn't matter. Help is out there, and healing. All you have to do is make that step and get in touch with someone and search for healing, and you'll find it.
Yeah, y'all hear that? Search for healing and you will find it. You can't help but do so. Thank you for your words of hope and encouragement. And I really just so appreciate you being here and being my guest today. For everyone listening, definitely follow up with Mike. You can find him at husbandmaterial.com, polarlifeconsulting@gmail.com. I'll put all the links in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening, for tuning in. As always, if you'd like to make a donation to support the podcast, you can go to bit.ly/Beyond Surviving Podcast Donation. All contributions are applied towards funding scholarships, the running of donation-based and free programs, and making sure that those reaching out for support get what they need. Because, what'd you say, Mike? You put your mind to it, you will find it. Yeah.
That's right. That's
whatever you need, it is out there. And you can visit rachelgrantcoaching.com to learn more about sexual abuse recovery coaching and to explore the other resources at the site as well. Please subscribe to the podcast. Come back next time because we have so much more to share. And until then, take good care of you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Mike.